Remove your fuel rail heat shields. Unhook your heater hose lines. Got little squeeze tabs, push, squeeze, pull. I cap mine off with Brock Supply number 8 caps, both sides. Undo your crankcase ventilation tubes, both sides. Pull the top portion of your air intake. Unplug your throttle body wire and your purge valve wire and move them to the side. Take the bolts out of your purge valve and pull it. It'll make it easier for you to figure out how to remove that clip without breaking it. Remove this vacuum line. Use that clip and remove the fuel line. Very little, my truck set, very little runoff. Pull all 8 of your injector plugs and the 4 10mm bolts that holds down the fuel rail. Pop the fuel rail out. Takes a pretty firm tug on all 4 corners. The 6 8mm bolts that hold down the intake manifold lift and move forward so you can get to the plugs and the wiring harness that's on the back of the manifold. The wiring harness is attached to the manifold and you'll have to pry that loose. Getting everything loose from the back of the manifold was by far the hardest part so far. This plug here was hard for me to get loose, but the one on the other side come loose easy. The little push tab wasn't working very good, and I had a really difficult time getting the one off the sensor. And then the wiring harness is pushed into these 2 holes. A little bit hard to get to, and then I just pulled enough slack and cut that vacuum hose. I think that's not going to be used, going to have to be plugged off, but I still got plenty of hose left if I got to go back with it. See that was that dirty. I should have probably got an air hose after that to start with, but I'm gonna have to get a vacuum cleaner after it now. I'm sure dirt has dropped down in there on them cylinders. Once you lift your intake manifold out, get you a flashlight and shine down on each one of the ports and see which cylinders have open valves. And the ones that have open valves, stuff a rag down in it so no debris can fall down and go into the piston area. After that, clean your surface, gasket surface area up real good, and then shine a flashlight again, and on those other cylinders that didn't have the open valves, take compressed air and blow the dust and debris out before you put your intake manifold on. There's going to be 4 plugs on the back that you don't use, 2 blue ones and 2 cream colored ones. This one goes to your map sensor. A lot of people say they zip tie them. I electrical taped all mine. There's 3 of them in there, and then this one here. I electrical taped them to keep dirt and debris and water from getting up in the end of the plug. To install the map sensor on the back of the manifold, I just ground down that 1 rib, and then I drilled a 3/8 inch hole. The 3/8 inch hole wasn't large enough, so I just kind of done circular motions with the drill until I got it bigger. I was careful to keep it round. And I was also checking periodically to make sure I hadn't made it too big, and I got it to where it would just barely fit in there. And then to mount it, a lot of people saying to use a self-tapping screw. I just used the original screw. It was a little long, I felt, so I ground it down shorter, and then I drilled a 11/64 hole and screwed it right in. Once you get your map sensor mounted on the back of your new Boss intake manifold, take your fuel rail and take some compressed air. There's 2 O-rings on each fuel injector. Blow them off and get those O-rings really clean. And I sprayed a little bit of WD-40 on all of mine. And then mount the fuel rail onto the new intake manifold before setting it down into the truck on the engine. Now once you get it set down and get it straight, finger tighten all of those bolts into the cylinder head. That way you don't get anything cross-threaded. And then take your 4 bolts that hold down the fuel rail and thread those in by hand as well. Once you get the 6 8mm bolts threaded into the cylinder head that holds the intake manifold on, and then the 4 10mm bolts that holds the fuel rail on, once you get them all finger tight, start a crisscross pattern and start tightening the intake manifold down. I recommend finding out what the torque specs are and doing it, but I did not. I just palmed my ratchet like that and tightened by twisting my wrist where I didn't have any leverage, and careful to not over tighten and breaking the intake manifold or stripping out the threads in your aluminum cylinder heads. But like I said, I did a crisscross pattern and tightened them all down and got them all snug. Once you got your manifold tightened down, plug your map sensor back up, plug in all your fuel injectors, and get ready to install your throttle body. The Boss intake has alignment pins for the throttle body, and here's holes for the alignment pins, but they don't match up with the stock truck manifold, so you'll have to cut those alignment pins off of your Boss intake manifold. Now you want to take care of the purge valve that mounted there before you install your throttle body. But this line right here, it had a rubber hose on it that ran back and went into the back of the original intake. You need to take that hose off and cap this line. This vacuum hose right here goes back and hooks right there just like it did on the original manifold. This hose is the one that I just removed from the line that went to the back of the manifold and capped off. You need to take it and run it down to your purge valve that is hanging under the intake manifold now. Attach that hose to where the purge valve used to go in the intake manifold. Reattach your vacuum purge for your fuel tank and your electrical plug, and just leave it hanging. You'll need about 12 inches of a 3/4 heater hose, 2 3/4 adapters, and a couple screw clamps to extend your heater hose. I ended up only using about 4 inches of that hose, and just run it across the top and plug it in. Then you mount your upper portion of your air intake. They make special kits to make the air intake work. My JLT works, but the lid won't go on it. If I put the lid on it, it pushes it over here and it kind of kinks the tube a little bit more, so I figure out what I'm going to do about that. Install your new tune and she's ready to go. Thanks for watching.